My name's Dean. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and this is Inside Addiction. My guest today is Brian. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dean.
First things first, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. I know you're involved in a lot of things, so just thank you for joining me today. Brian, as a person in long-term recovery, how was it growing up for you?
Well, before I get into that, thank you for having me, Dean, and thank you for doing this show. It's really an awesome service that you're doing for recovery. Thanks. And I love it, so keep it up. For me, growing up, I grew up in a small town, Corinth, just north of Saratoga Springs, so not a whole lot going on up there. Not a lot of nightlife or day life.
Couple traffic lights.
Couple traffic lights. The second one was installed when I was, in middle school, I think. But there wasn't a lot going on there. But I can't really say for me that my environment was a reason that I started drinking.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't it. Yeah. For me, it was more, I have self-diagnosed ADD, ADHD.
Yep.
Back then, we didn't have that in the 70s.
Back in the day, nobody had it.
I was just the hyper kid.
Yep, me too.
So sit down, shut up, and
go outside and play.
Right. So I was the spaz. I was the hyper kid. And it actually took me going down, I did kind of a reverse fresh air children thing. I used to go down, my mom's from Brooklyn, and her sister lived in Long Island. So in the summer, I went down there for some excitement. And my uncle kept a beer refrigerator down in the basement. We didn't really have that at my house. And my first beer was down there in Long Island, and I hated the way it tasted, but I found after a few of those that the depressant effects that I find out later really, for me, worked pretty well on that hyperactivity. Okay.
So how did your use go from being down in the city with your uncle with the kegerator to developed into a problem or a substance use disorder as we know it nowadays?
Well, it's interesting, knowing now and looking back, if I'd known what I knew then.
How many times have I said that? Right? Sometimes on a monthly basis.
Yes. It was, well, the whole scene that was set up for me, I was 13 when I took my first drink. I remember the movie E.T. had just come out.
Yep.
And when I think about how young that is now, it's pretty amazing. But involved a girl that I had a crush on. She was a few years older.
Them girls, Brian.
Yeah, I know. And she smoked cigarettes.
Okay.
So my first beer was also with the first cigarette. And those addictions really worked well together. I came back up to Corinth. Like I said, I hated the way the alcohol tasted. Didn't much care for the way the cigarettes tasted either, but I liked the effect it had on me.
Yeah.
And I also thought I was pretty cool smoking. So I came up and immediately started to enlist some of my friends and buddies into smoking cigarettes and drinking beer, usually out in a sand pit or down at a boat launch. And it was totally for effect. I like to say, when I wasn't drinking, I was this spazzy, hyper kid. But when I drank, it changed that world around me. And I was a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at what point did you seek help?
Well, that's what's interesting. My story went from about age 13 to age 26 was when I took my last drink. And my drinking ended, not because I was reaching out for help necessarily, but because alcohol stopped working for me.
Wow.
And that was really a gift. My tolerance had gone up and up and up over the course that I was drinking. And I don't have a real sexy, story. I don't have a really dramatic drunkalogue.
Haven't been in prison 10 times?
Haven't been in prison. I will tell you the first...
Your parole officer's not out in the hallway?
No, not waiting for me. But I will tell you, the first weekend that I went away to school, I went up to SUNY Plattsburgh and took this alcohol problem with me. I did spend a night in jail up there and thought, whoa, this is getting real. And it was all related to my drinking. That was my welcome to college experience. So struggled through 2 years of college, kept getting in trouble. I was always on probation, not for my academics, but for my behavior. So I decided to move over to England and spend a year abroad. That
Oh,
was how
wow.
I was going to escape my alcohol problem.
There you
do
go.
the geographic cure.
Take you with you.
Yes, and that was the problem. I took me with me, and believe it or not, the first weekend I was in England, the police picked me up there too.
You found some pubs?
And I thought, what, America, now England, what's wrong with these places, right? So, I mean, looking back on it, the insanity was there the whole time. But my drinking kind of died with a whimper rather than a bang. I went through, my father and I, when I got done with college, I came back and was helping him run a small business that had been in our family for years. And my drinking was getting worse and worse and worse. And at that point, I still kept my picket fence up on the outside.
Sure.
Like it looked like I was okay, but I was doing that Jekyll and Hyde thing. All of my relationships were impacted. So anytime someone got close, especially romantic relationships, if they were able to start to see, boy, he's got a problem with drinking, or what's going on here, some of that anger would come out when I was drinking. I'd just push them away and
Right.
cut and run. But my father was involved in an accident when he was 55, and he actually was in a coma, and then he passed away as a result of that.
Oh.
And here I was running a business, completely immature, totally steeped in my alcohol addiction, and at that point I was kind of like slapped straight about, you're either going to let this all fall apart, you're going to end up dead. And I saw the effect that my father's death had on my family.
Right.
And that was when I started to pull it together. And that's really how it ended.
Has your recovery ever been tested? Have you ever thought it could be an option again?
Using?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think when my sobriety first started, I had decided I was going to give myself a year of not drinking. That was how, and I'd see if things got better. And I was fun to be around because I quit drinking and quit smoking cigarettes on the same day, and just complete white knuckling. And I had a year. But I did have, I had done a little research, and I went to the library and took out the Alcoholics Anonymous book, what they call the big book sometimes.
Okay, yep.
And I read that, and I didn't understand any of it, except for one little thing in this step 1 they talked about that said I was powerless.
Yeah.
And that I knew. That got to me.
No question about that.
No question about it. So that really got to me. And after about a year of just white knuckling it, people started coming into my life that were working a program, 12 steps, it's self-help. They've been sober a while. I know now, or I believe now, that's all higher power.
Absolutely.
I think my dad was doing some work
yeah.
up there too,
Yep.
shuffling it around.
Yep.
So for me, this is, I'm a person in long-term recovery. This is my 21st year of
Wow.
doing this. But to say it's never been tested would be a huge lie. I have no desire to drink at this point. My behaviors come back.
Oh, yeah.
If I don't work my program and do what I need to do. And I remember about 4 years in, I was in a rough place. I mean, life seemed to be going good, but I decided to go camping by myself, and that's what I used to do all the time.
What
Just
could happen?
Isolate, nothing. I'll be fine, right? So I went camping by myself, and on the way up there, I'm a garage sale guy, and I love garage sales. So I
Yep.
stopped, and they had this nice pair of shorts, and I thought, oh, this will be great on my camping trip. So I buy these shorts, I get up there, and I'm going to try these on before I go out. And there was a pill in the pocket of those shorts. Now, I don't know if this was Tylenol, Coricidin.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't labeled, but I looked at that pill, and I wasn't even a pill guy. I did different kinds of drugs, but I thought, oh, I wonder what that'll do to
We'll
me.
find out what it does.
I threw that thing in the lake,
There you
packed up
go.
all my stuff, and went back and called my sober support and went to a meeting. And it was really, for me, when I found out right there that I'm never going to be bulletproof. You know, I heard people say you can't stay clean today on yesterday's shower.
Yep.
You're only, the record for sobriety is 24 hours, all these kind of things. And it's really true, at least for me. But in terms of a desire to drink, I feel very lucky because I had lost my tolerance toward the end, and the desire is gone. Just like I'll smell a cigarette every now and then and go, oh, that smells pretty good, but I ride it out and just don't do it.
So Brian, at some point you decided, and a lot of people that, there's many pathways to recovery. A lot of people that get sober and start that journey into recovery, it just becomes a small part of their life, and they move on with their lives. They're not the ones that are speaking out nowadays saying, hey, I'm a person in long-term recovery. There's so many of us out there, but they're not the ones out at the marches and stuff. But you've taken and you really become an advocate in many ways, and the whole substance use disorders has come into your life professionally and voluntarily and personally. So let's talk about some of the many things that you're involved in the advocacy work that you do.
Great. Okay. So, yeah, and it's interesting, and I think we're kind of kindred spirits here in terms of the idea when I got sober that I was just going to enjoy my sober life and go on my merry way and even run that business that my father and I were running. It just never really crossed my mind. I think it's almost like, I'm not a big religious guy, but I'm a spiritual guy.
Absolutely.
And I think about the story of Paul. I think it's in the New Testament, getting struck off his horse and kind of waking up and going, whoa, my whole life was going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
For me, my recovery has been like that. That first year when I stayed sober, I wasn't smoking cigarettes, wasn't drinking. I had a lot of anger and I was kind of miserable, but I could not deny that after that year, sobriety was better than my drinking had ever been. And this was before I was hooked up with other sober people. I hadn't even, started to really be joyful. To me, this is a gift. My recovery is a gift. I don't deserve this any more than the probably thousands of people that I've worked with since I've been sober.
Right.
I didn't do anything special. I'm another bozo on the bus.
That terminal uniqueness.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Garden variety.
Right. But I was given this.
Yeah.
So for me, the idea to change some things and to devote my life into helping others wasn't really even so much as a choice as it was, this is what I need to do. And I don't think it's that far from the people that started the original 12 steps when they said, what is our primary purpose? It's to help the alcoholic who still suffers. So for me, our stories and where we've been, to connect that with somebody else is huge. And I've really tried to go forward with that in a lot of different ways.
So tell me about the different ways.
Well, I went back to school and decided right away I wanted to be a substance abuse counselor. And it was funny, I don't know if you had this experience, but everyone I met said, why would you want to do that? What are you, really? You're not going to make any money?
I thought it was the only thing I could do. I figured for 20 years I used, I sold, and I thought I would just take my expertise and find a way to utilize it without going to jail.
It's perfect, right? You had a degree from the School of Hard Knocks?
I did, yes. I had a extensive degree.
Yes. Well, I met so many people saying, why would you want to do that? What do you want to do? And I just said, I do. It's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I went back to school. I went to Hudson Valley to get my credential in substance abuse counseling. That's where I'm working now. I've actually run the substance abuse program there to get KSACs.
Who'd have thunk it, Brian?
I know.
Back in the day, who'd have thunk it?
It's amazing. It's just amazing. But so I went back and I got a job. I worked at Hospitality House, first of all, so I saw that TC model.
Yep.
Then I worked at a halfway house, Hedgerow House up in Boston Spot. I got to see that. And I was doing this while I was getting my KSAC through the program because I said, I really want to see. I'm feeling the calling, but is this where I want to be? And it was. So once I got out, I started working for an outpatient at Spark, and I worked there for years with adolescents, and I know you can definitely relate there. And I really liked the work. So I decided at that point to go back and get my degree in teaching, and my idea was that I was going to work with young people that were at risk of developing addiction. I got my degree in teaching. Life had other plans. So it ended up that I got an offer from a professor that's always been a mentor to me at Hudson Valley who said, hey, we've got an opening. Would you like to come back here? So I came back there, and that's where I teach now. And just learning about the substance abuse field, and I'm sure you find this too. Not only, I never liked history in school. I was just an okay.
One thing worse than that is math, Brian.
Yes, I know. Math and history weren't my things, but I could talk.
Right? Public speaking never had a problem.
I could write. Yeah. But learning the history of substance abuse has been fascinating to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've learned almost nothing, you know, and we go back to the same things again and again that haven't worked. I mean, we're sitting here the day after they've declared the opioid crisis a national emergency, public health emergency. I know the wording's important.
Somebody finally got the email, Brian.
Yes, right.
Seriously?
But the ways and means that those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. And I think in this field, so true.
Just talking about this the other day with Benjamin Rush, going back to like the 1800s.
Yeah.
People knew this was a problem.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, there was a group that was started soon after we came over and decided America was ours. And it was the Heart Lake movement. And it was Native Americans who knew as soon as they were exposed to alcohol that they were going to lose their land if they didn't stay away from this stuff.
Yeah, they had the sober circles too.
Exactly, yes. So, I mean, this problem goes back so long, and I find that stuff fascinating. I know sometimes it seems like it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
But when you look at the history of every single psychoactive substance in America, the story has not ended well. It's always had such negative consequences. And the final choice to keep that drug or substance in the general population has been because of money.
Absolutely.
It's always been because of
Follow
money.
the funds.
Yes. Yeah. So part of what really gets my engine going is educating and learning. I'm always learning about the history and how can we learn from that and when can we move forward. I'm still a substance abuse counselor for Spark. I still do outpatient clinic work, mostly group work, and I love working with people who are in the process of getting sober. I mean, again, I think I can relate with you where I ask new people getting into this field, why are you doing this? Not because I want to dissuade them, but I want to know their motivation. And you probably get this too, because
it's not the income, it's the outcome,
yes,
Brian.
It's the outcome.
It's
there
the
you
outcome.
Go. But I hear young people, or sometimes people who have been sober in the program for a while, changing careers, say, if I could just help one person. And the truth is, you're going to help so many more than that. It doesn't always mean that they're going to get sober the first time, but you're going to help so many people say that. Just with your story and what you teach them. So for me, working as a clinician is something I don't see myself ever getting away from. Plus, I don't think I could retire on this salary anyway, Dean. So there you go.
I don't think you would want. I don't think you would want to. It takes a special kind of person. And I think at some point it just flows through our veins.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
So what are some other things you're involved in? Tell me about RAIS.
Well, so here I am, and I've devoted my career really to substance abuse counseling, educating about substance abuse, trying to get people into the field, you know, and get certified in the field. And then this movement comes along that starts with the movie The Anonymous People. And all of a sudden we're seeing people come out, 23 million people living in recovery, and this young man, Greg Williams, who really pushed to say, you know guys, if we don't make this a political issue, a medical issue, if we don't talk about what recovery is, nothing's going to change.
And I love that whole, you know, silence equals death.
Yes. Yeah, and it's so true. So I am not a person, I'm not the poster child for 12-step meetings. It's just not the way I got sober.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I would never say a bad thing. I certainly am not, you know, knocking that program at all. It was so forward thinking in the 1930s, and that primary purpose of helping people.
Yep.
But I think, and this is just Brian Farr's, I think if the creators of that program were here in 2017 and we're 80 years away from prohibition, and the stigma, although it's even there, it's there, it's not as less, I think they'd say, yeah, let's do what we can do to help people. So getting involved in the recovery movement, I like to call it the recovery revolution.
Oh, yeah.
The war on drugs, I think we lost.
Forget about it.
But the recovery revolution is here. For me, that has meant talking a little more and being open about my own recovery, and also advocating for the changes that you and I know are so needed in the recovery movement, and to help people stay sober, and to help people who are still struggling with addiction.
What do you think some of those changes are? Let's talk about that.
Well, I think some of the ones that I've seen, we talked about just yesterday here, declaring that there is a national crisis. That's a huge step. That's a big start. And yes, it's been going on for more than 20 years, but every single drug out there has gotten stronger. From alcohol, when I was drinking, I think the top was around 5%.
Yeah.
Now the average is 7 to 8%. The heroin with fentanyl, much stronger. They had this great idea with pharmaceuticals to release something like oxycodone, Oxycontin.
Oh, our friends at Purdue Pharmacy.
Yes. So we like our drugs strong in America. And I always kid with my students about talking, when you go to get aspirin, you're not going to buy aspirin, you're going to buy extra strength aspirin, right? We're not going to buy coffee, we're going to buy extra coffee caffeinated.
With 5 shots, and they've got the, death by coffee now, and it makes complete sense to drink coffee that has a skull and crossbones on the label.
Why not, right? So with the recovery movement, I think our job, and I'm Irish, so I don't think I would start any fight unless I was outnumbered and outgunned,
Right.
Bring it on. I think the big message here is, why are we intoxicating ourselves? Why is more always better?
There's a pill for everything.
There's a pill for everything.
I was just at the doctor's the other day, and they always ask you, are you in any pain? And if you are, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yes.
And nobody's ever a 2. I mean, sometimes people are 11 and 12.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's where it really started with prescription medications, was when they started letting the patients define the pain chart.
Yeah, just hand over the script pad.
Oh, sure, yeah. I see the recovery revolution in Greg Williams and the anonymous people, and these RAIS is a recovery community organization that says, not just let's help people who are struggling with addiction, but let's shine the spotlight on some people who have gotten there. Yeah. This is a wonderful, beautiful gift of a life. We're free. I can go into a party and I'm not looking where's the bar,
right,
where's the drug, where's the this, where's the that anymore. But it's such a countercultural message, because I think in America our drug of choice is more.
Yeah.
It's greed.
Absolutely.
And we're taught from a very young age to start stimulating our dopamine, our serotonin. Technology nowadays does all this. So we've got a ways to go when we look at something like heroin or opioids or even alcohol and say, that substance is bad. I think we've got to dig deeper and say, what is driving our young people toward that substance? For me, I was the spaz kid, and I thought it worked. I could have used some other help with that. What is going on, and how do we start to turn those messages? There's nobody better than people in recovery or family members who have lost someone, had someone incarcerated, tried to get someone into treatment, and they had to wait weeks and lost the person in the process. These are the people who really, I can't imagine that level of pain, and I hope I never have to, but I'm not immune to that. So in my volunteer work, when I work with family members, it's just amazing to me, the strength that they have and the hope they give me. Yeah,
I had the opportunity last year to go to one of the candlelight vigils in Saratoga, and how moving and powerful. My fiance's husband passed away from an overdose when she was 3 months pregnant. He never even got to meet his father. So the healing opportunity, for example, like opiate, overdose awareness night and the candlelight vigils, because there's so many people that suffer with substance use disorders, but sometimes the family members are overlooked.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and these are the people who really, they want to come out. They want to help.
Yeah.
They want to make their children's death. No, they don't want anyone else to go through that. I mean, the strength they have is amazing.
Yeah. What do we need to do to get a hand around this?
That's a good question.
And what are we doing wrong? Or what are we doing that's ineffective?
Yeah, I think, again, this is my life. 24/7, I live, breathe, talk, teach, walk, recovery. So from my point of view, the stigma has to stop. We have to recognize this is a disease. It's not a disease concept, it's a disease. We have to be honest. We have to start embracing sobriety. We have to start looking at why we're turning to anesthetize or drug ourselves on things. And we've got to create a community of family members and people in recovery and our politicians and representatives who really embrace this.
Yeah.
Those, I think, are the biggest things.
Absolutely. So, Brian, this is your camera over here. If there was someone watching that's still sick and suffering, what would your message be to them, or a family member of someone that's still sick and suffering? What would your message be to them?
My message to you, if you are caught in that place, in the disease of addiction, or you know someone who is, reach out, get help. There are so many things and resources that you have right now. You don't need to suffer in silence. You don't need to be alone.
Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean. Always good to see you.
You too.